is a new sci-fi drama from writer and director James Gray. This film stars Brad Pitt as an astronaut named Roy McBride, very near in the future where technology has developed a lot and the world has changed. He goes on an undercover mission through the stars to find the Lima project, which is potentially causing a lot of damage and trouble for the Earth and the rest of the galaxy. And aboard this ship, Tommy Lee Jones, playing his father, could potentially still be alive, though they thought him to be dead a long time ago. I watched The Lost City of Z right before seeing Ad Astra, and I thought that was a really good film, and it seemed like James Gray was on track to make another great film with this. There was a lot of great buzz behind this film at the various film festivals it was playing at, and the trailers made this movie look so good, maybe so thought-provoking and so epic at the same time. I was honestly really excited to see this movie. I was just super hyped up, and I walked out of this movie, and I hate to say it, but after It Chapter 2, September this month has let me down once again. Ad Astra, though I was hyping this up so much like It Chapter 2, it unfortunately just kind of left me disappointed. However, also similar to It Chapter 2, there is a lot to love about this film. First of all, the filmmaking. James Gray makes a beautiful movie here. The visual effects look outstanding. There's so many wonderfully composed shots. The cinematography is so gorgeous that there are certain frames that they look too eloquent. They look almost too beautiful and graceful. At times, it literally does feel like you are staring at something that is real life. That's how realistic a lot of this CGI looks, which is great. There's not one single moment where I felt like the CGI was downgraded a bit or it didn't look as good as something else. Everything in this movie visually is perfect, cinematography-wise, and the CGI, they do a fantastic job here. Max Richter does a really great job with the score. He really gets you into this movie with those sounds that he's able to make. There's a lot of great music to be heard in this film. And there are certain aspects of the world, how it's kind of changed, that I was honestly really into. There's a moment where they go to the moon, and they've kind of made it into like this airport pretty much. Like there's certain restaurants that you can find, but its sole purpose is to travel from one place to another. I thought that was actually really clever, and there's a lot of great things to pick at as far as the details they add to this world. This movie has a lot to say with its message. It has a message, it has a point, and it has something to say. And I actually really understood what they were trying to go for, and I actually kind of liked that this movie was trying to say these things. And I honestly really appreciate the movie because of that. And my final pro that I can say with this is Brad Pitt is great. I think we all know that. He's delivered a lot of great performances before. This year, he delivered a fantastic one in Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This movie is another great addition to his filmography. He does such a great job here. He has to kind of do the Ryan Gosling in First Man, where he has to keep composed for a lot of it because astronauts are trained to compartmentalize, so they're able to stay focused and stay psychologically fit to be on these missions, because it can be really stressful and really scary out there in the vacuum of space. And James Gray really does illustrate how terrifying space is through the visuals and the cinematography. There's so many moments where it's just space, but you're kind of terrified of it because it's just so vast and big, and if anything goes wrong and you're up there, you're kind of just messed up. Like you're just done pretty much. So they really do a good job of making that scary, but also how that helps Brad Pitt's performance is that he's trying to remain so stoic the entire time, but there's subtleties to his performance that really let you in on how he's feeling. There is also some narration that they give him that I also see the point of. He's compartmentalizing, but in his head, though you're looking at a completely stoic Brad Pitt, you actually hear what he's thinking that you wouldn't be able to tell just by looking at him. I can kind of see the idea of that, and I actually did like that overall. I don't think everything he said had to be narrated. There's a couple times where they use the narration, in my opinion, to just state the obvious that we didn't need him to just spell out for us. Or also, there's a couple times where he narrates just to kind of speed things along so we don't have to dwell too much on certain things that have just happened. And this is where we're going to start leading into more of my cons with this film, because although there's a lot this movie is trying to say, it's trying to be something really grand with its themes here. It's not trying to be a big blockbuster sci-fi film, because even though there are a couple moments of suspense that are really well done and well executed and fun to watch, it's really more so trying to deliver this message at the end of the day. And overall, I can appreciate it for that, but there are certain issues that overall make the impact not as heavy as it should be. There's a lot of things in this story that I felt were just underdeveloped. Liv Tyler is in the cast, and she's featured prominently in like the first trailer at least. In this movie, she is really not in it all that much, but there's baggage there with her relationship with Roy McBride. but they only really just bring that up because Roy McBride is narrating it now. There's a lot of moments where he's just kind of stating out all of his problems like that, and you're just supposed to get attached to it because of that. But I think it would have been stronger if we had seen that beforehand. Liv Tyler, there's never a scene where she actually talks to Brad Pitt face to face, at least. Like, there's one moment where she's talking to him, like, on a video, but it's not even like a Skype call or something. It's literally just like a saved video. So she really is underused here. And I'm not trying to be like, I'm a big fan of Liv Tyler, how dare you not utilize her well in this movie. I'm really just trying to get at that her character is obviously very important to Brad Pitt's overall character and his arc, but they barely focus on her to begin with, so when he goes on this mission, I constantly forgot that she actually existed. Same goes for Donald Sutherland. He showed up at one point, and I can kind of get the idea of what they're going with his character, but once he kind of exits the film, I kind of forgot that he was there beforehand, you know? His character didn't leave a lasting impression on anything going on. And like I said, I think I understand why they have this character in this movie. I think I can understand what this character is supposed to be for Brad Pitt and the overall situation. But when your characters don't really do that much to make a lasting impact except be there and say some lines as okay as any actor could possibly deliver them, it doesn't really make you care for that character all that much. And that's the thing, is like Brad Pitt is doing a great job because his character requires to have some emotion here and there, as subtle as it can be. It does require these emotions at points. The supporting cast of this movie, they're made up of talented actors that are delivering dialogue as fine as possible. And at that point, I just don't really see the need of casting these big actors to begin with, if you're just going to have them deliver stuff as plainly as they possibly can. Ruth Negga shows up in this movie a little later on and for a very short scene, but it's really just so her character can explain something that, once again, is kind of important for Tommy Lee Jones's character and the overall message of what the movie's going for, but then she just kind of exits. And at that point, when Ruth Negga came and left the film, I kind of realized what my big issue with this movie was, that these characters are just supposed to be here to support the main theme, and then after they're done delivering that dialogue as plainly as possible, they can leave, and they don't have to have any effect on Roy McBride at all. And I think that was really disappointing overall, because these characters probably should mean something so that the message of the movie, when it hits, should hit harder, and these characters should actually mean something to us instead of just, I'm just a walking, talking mouthpiece for exposition and stuff. Bye. Tommy Lee Jones is like the only one in the supporting cast that actually delivers some pretty good emotion, and I thought his performance was really good. The thing that undercuts that, though, is that they barely, like not really at all actually, go into that history with him and Brad Pitt's character. They mention a few problems on the most basic level possible, but at the end of the day, it didn't really do much for me to actually give a crap about the father-son drama at all. It felt just so basic, and by the end of the movie I was like, okay, once again, I see where this fits in with the theme of the movie. However, I wish I could have felt something just for these characters, though, instead of me thinking, wow, this is really smart of a message, you know? For as many details as they have, also, there's certain things that just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Like, there's a moment where an action scene happens with these space pirates on the moon, and I was thinking, this is a really well-made action sequence, it's a ton of fun. However, what are space pirates doing on the moon? Where are they hiding on the moon? And what are they actually after, specifically in this moment, because they're not really carrying anything, but they're coming after them now? And also, just how are they hiding on the moon? Who are these people? How they get, like, I don't think they did a good job of explaining that, and even it doesn't help that the movie opens up, and they try to rush into Brad Pitt going on his mission, and things just kind of happen really quickly. Like, that shot of him falling off this, like, little tower, and he's, like, falling back to Earth. Like, that's really like first 5 minutes of the movie, and after that, it's almost like they instantly go, all right, now you gotta go to the moon and begin your mission, and it happens really quickly. It doesn't give you time to get adjusted to Brad Pitt's character before they actually get you on an adventure with him. It doesn't give you any time to understand his history, his current relationships, or anything, really. There is a scene that literally comes out of nowhere involving tension, I'll say that, and it was tense, and it literally came out of nowhere, so it did catch me off guard, but after that scene, it's not like they ever mention it again, or these things come into play later. like this was just like this is like just the beginning because they're gonna come back. It was just there so they could have a quick minute of tension, and also so they could get rid of another character. And as tense as it was, I'll give him that. It was, once again, well-made movie by James Gray, but at the end of the day, it just felt like it came out of a different movie entirely. For a movie that's trying to be as realistic as possible, because there are definitely things in this movie where I was like, I can actually kind of see this happening in the future if we ever get to this part. There are things that, like this one scene I'm mentioning, and also the pirate stuff that kind of take me out for a moment, and I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how any of this kind of fits in. And kind of going back to things going by really quickly, there's a moment where Brad Pitt does something that's kind of horrible, and kind of like this should weigh on a man's conscience, and he mentions it through narration, but because it's narration, they kind of breeze by it really quickly, and they never mention this horrible thing again. And it's like, well, you reported this in a space log, so people are aware of it. Surely someone should be concerned, and certain things that are happening in this ending probably should be changed up just a little bit to accustom for this thing that you did. There's a lot that I can say I really liked about this movie. The filmmaking, cinematography, visual effects, the score. Brad Pitt gives another good performance, as per usual in his career. There's very rarely a dud when it comes to him. And the overall message of the movie is one that I could really get behind, and if the movie was a lot stronger story-wise and character-wise, I'd be all for it. Unfortunately, as grand as this movie looks visually, it really does fall flat in a lot of departments when it comes to its overall story, and I really dislike that a lot when it comes to certain movies like this, where it looks so good and it's so, like, gosh, it looks so gosh darn good, but then when it comes down to these characters and the story, you're just kind of like, well, I mean, that could have been better. Because I can be wowed by visuals to a certain extent, but at some point I'm gonna want to start paying attention to story and characters, and when you have supporting characters that are literally only there to say dialogue, like, very okay, like, very passable, which is kind of bad for actors at their kind of star power. But they say it as okay as possible, and then they leave the movie, and you forget that they were even there. And it just creates an experience that doesn't really impact you as much as it probably should, at least for me. There's a lot of history between Brad Pitt and Liv Tyler, or him and Tommy Lee Jones, that they don't even really go into all that much. There are things they rush past in order to just get Brad Pitt on this mission. There are certain things that they just breeze by, either because it's a narration moment, and they're just trying to move on as fastly as possible, or just because, I don't know, it just doesn't matter. We gotta keep going. And it just really created this experience that I wish I loved a lot more than I overall did. It Chapter 2 I gave the same grade as this movie, but I'm honestly going to give It Chapter 2 a little bit of credit that the cast I liked. They all gave great performances as these characters that, although their introductions were rushed and certain things felt a little flat, I overall liked them. I liked these characters and I liked these actors. In this movie, I like Brad Pitt, and I overall liked his character, though there are definitely a lot of things missing from his character. And the other characters, they have things to do, but the way that it's executed through the movie script, it barely feels like they were even a part of it to begin with. And it feels like they could have been swapped out with anybody. And I wish that they made more of an impact overall. And as much as the message I did like, it could have been delivered so much better if you had created an all-around experience that I was completely invested with. I'm gonna give Ad Astra a C+. I like the filmmaking. The score by Max Richter is really great. Brad Pitt is an actor of high class, so of course he's going to deliver another good performance, but I do think a lot of this movie is underdeveloped, and just because it has breathtaking visuals, and just because it has a message that is really good, and just because it's not a big, dumb sci-fi action movie like a lot of other sci-fi movies, doesn't mean I'm overall going to give it a pass, because I do feel like that a lot of things could have been fleshed out a lot better. Certain things could have impacted much better, and definitely overall I could have felt something a lot more. There are moments where I honestly felt kind of bored with this movie. Not overall, but there are moments where I was like, can we please just get this rolling a little faster? But if you've seen Ad Astra, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.